Hey folks, Dan here. I have here a nice warm cup of coffee in my Dr. Lobster mug, which is something of a cultural artifact at this point. It's about 20 years old now. So I want to talk to you really quickly about a few things. Number one, our print fulfillment should be getting underway within the next week or so. I'm expecting to have the latest print proof of Adobe Kroger Dame Commander, and Brett and Matt will have theirs, and we'll be able to approve them and get them set off. We've had something of an adventure over the past couple of months getting the print fulfillment underway, but we're just about there. This was an original proof that was given to us from the printer that we are now using, but we had initially decided to move on from when he was going through a transition. Our backup printer ended up being impractical, so we went ahead and went back to this dude because he's now ready to take on larger jobs. He wasn't quite prepared for the volume, I think, that the Mythoverse and the Ironverse presented. So based on what I'm seeing here, I'm expecting the second proof to be just as good as this one. Very high quality. The book is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you all think of it. So anyway, moving on from that, what I really wanted to talk to you today about was Movie Men, another Wikid title. It was brought to us by the creative team of Jeremy Lott. He was the creator and writer. Doug Curtis brought us the art and the lettering, and it was, of course, co-published by Michael Watson and Matthew Bryant of Wikid Publishing. So the Wikid catalog is definitely growing, and it has a lot of very, very cool indie titles that you're going to want to check out. So keep an eye on the Wikid store. I'll make sure to leave a link to the store in the description. Okay, so what about Movie Men? Well, one thing that I really loved about Movie Men, well, several things. Aesthetically speaking, it brings to mind Crumb or Coop or any one of those underground artists from yesteryear. It's definitely not a manga style, which is refreshing. I mean, I love that, but eventually when you start to see too many of them, they all start to blend together, with a few exceptions. This is a style that is very much its own, and I very much appreciate that. The writing is very briskly paced. We jump right into it, and everything just starts to happen immediately, which I really appreciate. It's a really fun adventure story. It almost brings to mind those shorts from the Archie comics where the gang would suddenly get into an adventure, a supernatural adventure where they were sucked into a painting, and Betty had to paint her way out by remembering what the room outside the painting looked like. You know, just bizarre one-offs like that belong in the Twilight Zone. This book definitely does make me think of that. So, as I said, it's very briskly paced. So on the first page here, we not only get most of the entire cast, with the exception of Cherry, introduced on the first page, and we see that they're all employees of a large movie theater chain, and their boss is a huge stickler for policy and procedure and detail. So we have here Tess doing her regular spiel. Welcome to Mega Movies, home of the really big popcorn. What would you like to see today? And of course we have an in-universe analog to Harry Potter without actually saying it's Harry Potter. So she says that'll be $19 for one ticket. So it's obviously, you know, very subtly satirizing how expensive it is to go to the movies these days. And then the boss walks up behind her and says, "It's Mega Monster Popcorn, Tess. Get it right." Right there in front of the customer, no doubt, because she just gave him the ticket and her hand is still in roughly the same position. So I don't doubt that the customer is like right over here and is hearing everything. So that's very uncool. Didn't much appreciate that. So anyway, then we have Venus here. Here's your Mega Monster Medium Soda. Have fun in there. So she gets the brand right. But he walks up behind her and finds fault in her too. Upsell, Venus, upsell. It's how we make our money. Movies ain't keeping the lights on, which is very true. This is why concessions are so expensive. So then we move over to Brad. Theater 5, to your right. Save this ticket if you want to buy Mega Monster Popcorn. So he gets the brand right and he upsells, but the boss says, it's when you buy popcorn, not if you want to buy popcorn. So again, he's very much a micromanager. He doesn't let the employees do their thing, and he doesn't really trust them to do their thing. So at that point, he says, "Where's Nickum?" So that's when we meet cast member number 4. and he's checking on the exit door so no popcornless punks sneak in. Now, what they should be doing now is making sure that no one has any dollar store snacks in their pockets, because you can just go to a dollar store and get the very same snacks for $1 that they're charging $6 for. So I'm really quite amazed that that was left out, but fine. It's just fine the way it is. So Nickum immediately finds the plot device and he says, "It's a bomb!" And everyone charges out and the bomb goes off. So what happens when the bomb goes off? Well, Nickum is still alive here, so apparently it didn't blow him up. But he looks up at the screen and the dinosaur that was there in this Jurassic Park analog is gone. Where did the dinosaur go? Okay, so immediately within 1, 2, 3 pages, we have most of the cast introduced. We have the setting introduced. We have the dynamic introduced. And we have the premise introduced. So, like I said, it's very briskly paced. So, I greatly appreciate that. We're just right into the action immediately. So everyone's running out, and this old patron says, "I want my money back because the mummy that was on the screen just disappeared, and the actors are just sitting around smoking, waiting for them to come back." So, here's another thing I really like about it. Not only is the plot very briskly paced, but the premise is extremely outlandish, and yet the characters roll with it and just say, this is our reality that we have to deal with. They're not saying, hey, this is kind of silly. What normally happens in films like this, and they look at the camera and say, why are we in this ridiculous story? Like that would be like an episode of Buffy where they're self-aware and they don't really understand why the audience is expected to take this seriously. But in this case, they do. And they simply just roll with it and deal with it. So the monsters, thanks to the reality bomb, are brought to life off the screen and they start interacting with our world. But that's not the only thing that happens. When the movie employees go out there to deal with the threat, they suddenly manifest imaginary weapons in their hands that allow them to deal with the monsters, just out of nowhere. And you notice here that Tess said, "It just appeared in my hand." She doesn't say, "Oh, this is silly." She just says, "It appeared in my hand." And they just roll with it. And here we have Cherry gets a ray gun and she blows away the mummy. So I don't want to go too much into it. It kind of goes on like that, all right? I don't want to spoil everything about it, but there are some hilarious lines in here that are right in line with what I said about the characters accepting the premise as their reality without being genre savvy or self-aware, and that is something I always appreciate. It makes the book fun to read. As someone who grew up, in the 80s, I got to see all that stuff firsthand where the characters understood that they were in a comic book. They would break the fourth wall. It goes all the way back to, as early as the She-Hulk and before. And I'm just really glad that these characters do not do that. And it just creates a very enjoyable story. The artwork is definitely on an indie level, but it's like I said, it reminds me of the underground zines that you would see in the 60s and 70s. And it's very appropriate for the story, and it works. So definitely a huge recommend. This should be available on the Wikid store soon if it's not already. I believe it is. I'll double check that after the video. But either way, I'll put up a link to the store, and definitely go pick it up. And you want to follow the creators online here. There's at Wikid Publishing. That's Wikid Publishing. At Jeremy Lott Diary is obviously Jeremy Lott's Twitter, and Doug Curtis. So check it out, my friends. Very fun book and a very welcome addition to the Wikid library. So until next time, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this coffee, and I'm looking forward to giving you further updates on the Mythoverse print fulfillment. Till then, folks, till then.